Have you ever woken up to a blood sugar spike that you didn't deserve? You go to bed steady and in range, and then boom, your CGM graph looks like a mountain before your feet even hit the floor. See, here's the crazy part, that spike isn't random. It starts building hours before you even open your eyes. And the surprising truth, one decision you made last night could be the reason your liver dumps sugar like clockwork at 5 a.m. See, for years, I chased those morning highs with extra insulin and endless frustration. But when I discovered that a single shift in my nighttime setup could flatten my dawn curve, everything changed. And here's your first win right up front. If you've eaten dinner late and noticed your fasting glucose jump the next morning, that wasn't a coincidence. Studies show that timing and composition of our evening meal directly affect how much glucose your liver stores and later releases at dawn. But here's where it gets interesting, and what I'll cover when you stick around in this video: the hidden mistake that made my mornings a blood sugar battleground, the exact nighttime formula that stopped my dawn spikes cold, and a natural evidence-based way that you can reset your mornings without just stacking more insulin. Now, if we haven't met, I'm Matt Vandevecht. I'm a type 1 diabetes expert who also lives with type 1. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist, best-selling author, and Ironman athlete. And today, I'm going to give you the science, the story, and the strategy that finally cracked the dawn phenomenon for me and can for you too. In fact, drop the word mornings in the comments if you're tired of waking up to unexplained highs. Now, let me tell you what mornings used to look like for me. I'd wake up groggy, check my CGM, see that line climbing, and sometimes I'd already be at 180, right? Even though I'd gone to bed at 95 and reached for my insulin pen. I was on injections back then. Now I'm on an insulin pump. But I'd be frustrated, correcting before I even had coffee. And to be clear, the insulin pump does not fix this. It's just a different equation, right? And the worst part for me, I had no idea why at that point. I wasn't overeating before bed. I wasn't snacking late at night. And yet every morning felt like starting the day behind the starting line. See, as a result, I often had to pre-bolus for 45 minutes, which means I had to take my insulin 45 minutes before my first bite of breakfast just to give my insulin a fighting chance at tackling my breakfast. Do you have any idea how frustrating it is to have to sit there and wait and wait? And I mean, some of you might, right? With diabetes, insulin does not work fast enough. And so for me, I called it the overnight betrayal because it just seems to flip, right? You go to bed perfect, you wake up a wreck. And if you've ever experienced this, you know the feeling that diabetes just doesn't fight fair, right? But then I asked the right question. What if the spike I see in the morning isn't about what I did at 7 a.m.? What if it's about what I did at 7 p.m.? See, that one question changed everything. And looking to the past for helpful context on the present blood sugar number ended up becoming a superpower. Getting context and deeper understanding of what led me into the current blood sugar that I'm experiencing. And here's the truth. The dawn phenomenon, as it's called, isn't random. It's a hormonal orchestra, right? So between about 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., your body releases growth hormone, cortisol, adrenaline, catecholamines, counter-regulatory hormones that all tell your liver, release glucose. We need energy for the day. And this happens in diabetics and non-diabetics alike. So in people without diabetes, insulin ramps up to balance that release. But in type 1 diabetes, or in insulin resistance cases as well, that balance is missing. And the result is a morning spike. But here's the kicker. The size of that spike isn't just about hormones. It's about how much fuel your liver has to dump in the first place. So if you think of your liver like a fuel tank, right? If you go to bed with a tank loaded full of glycogen from a big, late, carb-heavy dinner, your liver has plenty to dump at dawn, right? And if you go to bed with a smaller, earlier meal, the tank is lower and the spike can be smaller. In fact, one study from ResearchGate showed that the post-dinner glucose response predicts fasting blood sugar the next morning. And another study from MDPI compared eating dinner at 6 p.m. versus 9 p.m. Same calories, same macronutrients, so the carbs, the fats, the proteins. The earlier dinner group had lower overnight and morning fast glucose. So yes, the time and size of your dinner matters. Now, let's add another layer: fat content. Right? You've probably heard me talk about this before if you're a seasoned viewer. Research from the Diabetes and Metabolism Journal shows that even a single high-fat meal can reduce insulin sensitivity for hours, especially in the liver. And another way of saying that would be that it has an increase in insulin resistance, since insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity do exist on a spectrum, as I discuss in depth in my #1 bestseller book, The Blood Sugar Freedom Formula. So you'll see behind me, right? Picture this: a late, fatty, carb-heavy dinner, right? Your liver is stuffed with glycogen and your insulin isn't working as effectively. Then the darn hormones hit and your numbers skyrocket, right? That's why it's not just what you eat, but also how much fat is in that meal. So the pieces of the meal separated, right? But let's think about this now. Another layer: what about exercise? A 2004 study from PubMed looked at people with impaired fasting glucose. And exercise, whether in the morning or evening, delayed the evening rise in glucose after dinner, but it did not significantly lower fasting glucose the next morning. So exercise alone may not erase the dawn spike, but here's what we do know. A study from health.com showed that afternoon and evening exercise reduces insulin resistance by up to 25% compared to morning workouts. So it's interesting, the context pieces behind this, right? Even short bouts of exercise, like 3 minutes of movement. So this is realistic for all of us, okay? You have no excuse. 3 minutes of movement every 30 minutes, okay? After dinner especially, can cut post-meal glucose by 32% on average. And again, the ADA, which you've probably heard about, the American Diabetes Association, recommends after dinner walks or workouts to burn off glucose that might otherwise feed into the dawn phenomenon spike. The play here is move after dinner, right? Not intense training, just movement. Okay, you heard me talk about earlier that I'm an Ironman. You don't have to do anything crazy. Like literally go for a walk, light cycling, body weight exercises. Don't go push yourself into the gym. It's going to wake you up before bed. It's not good for sleep quality either. But this helps deplete glycogen and sharpen insulin action overnight. That being said, studies also show that consistent weightlifting in any capacity, again, all levels are acceptable with varying degrees of success, will improve your baseline insulin sensitivity, which does technically have a small improvement on fasting glucose levels as well. So weight training in any capacity, still a good thing, especially if it's consistent. So at least every other day, or in some cases every day, do a couple squats, some push-ups, engage your muscle tissue. Your muscles will act like sponges to soak up extra glucose. It's one of my favorite hacks to diabetes. Now, here's something most people overlook when searching for a quick fix. You've heard me mention it just before this: sleep and quality of sleep, your circadian rhythm as well, right? So if you are working out heavily right before bed, it ramps up your adrenaline, your cortisol. You're not going to sleep as good. So avoid heavy exercise. So before bed, a walk might be more appropriate. But earlier in the day, that's where a heavier workout might have a lasting benefit, where your insulin sensitivity is improved for days on end from a single workout. It truly is incredible. But let's look at sleep, the circadian rhythm. Eating late at night disrupts your circadian rhythm and your circadian alignment and reduces insulin sensitivity. So it worsens your fasting glucose, right? The numbers that you wake up to. And poor sleep added to that, or high evening stress, right? Cortisol spikes even higher, drives more glucose release from the liver. So earlier meals, earlier bedtime, and a real wind down routine, like an actual routine. A lot of us have morning routines, right? I know for me, I wake up, I get dressed, I brush my teeth as I open up all the windows. And from there, I drink water with electrolytes as I start my coffee, because I use a French press and I have to make the coffee, right? And I start getting my breakfast, begin to put it together as I go about my morning mobility movement. So I do some light stretches to wake up my body. I have a very structured morning routine. But truth be told, my nighttime routine looks like this: brush teeth and, I don't know, take a shower. In what order? I don't know. And then at some point, I crawl into bed. There is no routine, right? It's just like a couple of non-negotiables. So I can improve on this as well. But look at setting up an actual wind down routine that tells your brain it's time to start calming down, which is also going to help in a natural release of melatonin that your brain can put out. All right. And actually get you into a state where you can fall into a deeper sleep that's actually going to help you to recover. And these are all simple things, right? But they're extra powerful when combined. Now, quick but critical note that I want to add into this: not all morning spikes are dawn phenomenon. So sometimes it's the Simoji effect, which is a rebound high after going low overnight. Now, this is quite rare, okay? That don't just jump to conclusions with this one, but this is where you go low, or hypoglycemic low at 2 a.m. Your body panics, and I should clarify, not always at 2 a.m. It's if there is a severe low in the middle of the night. This can happen. Do not rely on this, though. Obviously, this is not medical advice, because a lot of us would not have this rebound effect. You go low and you stay low, right? So for me, if I go low, I have to treat it with glucose. I can't rely on the Simoji effect to save me. But for some people, they go low at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever. Your body panics, dumps hormones, and by morning, you're high, right? So you survive, but at what cost? So the solution: check your CGM or test around 2 to 3 a.m. if you're dropping low. See if there is a pattern, right? And that is an entirely different problem if it is Simoji's effect. What about those of you who wake up steady? And you're like, this video hasn't applied yet, but the minute you swing your legs out of bed, your blood sugar starts climbing. You wake up, everything's stable, you're in the 90s. You kind of hang out, read a book, whatever, start your morning slow, hopefully not on your phone, because starting your morning with your phone, spiking cortisol, also not great. But the second you step out of bed, it just takes off, right? That is what's called feet on the floor phenomenon. I know they were super creative when they were coming up with the naming of that one. What do we call it when their feet hit the floor? Let's call it feet on the floor. Oh yeah, that's a good one. But this is different from dawn phenomenon, but it feels almost the same when you look at your morning graph. So here's the science. When you physically wake up and get moving, your body releases stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, and glucagon. These hormones tell your liver, hey, the day's starting. Let's release some glucose to fuel it. Like, it's a good thing, right? Your body is giving you energy. The issue is our pancreas doesn't quite function the same as it's supposed to, so we have to balance that out. And the difference between dawn phenomenon and feet on the floor is in the timing. So dawn phenomenon starts hours before you wake up, usually between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. It's triggered by your circadian rhythms. So when we talk about circadian rhythms, this is me referring to the 24-hour clock that your body operates on, which is also regulated by sunlight. So we get tired when it's dark. We get more alert when the sun comes back out. That's your circadian rhythm, okay? So dawn phenomenon is tied to your circadian rhythm, means it happens every 24 hours on the dot. Feet on the floor starts after you wake up, triggered by the act of waking and rising itself. And here's the kicker. You can have one or both or neither, which is why so many people misdiagnose their morning spikes. Unfortunately, I have both. I have to deal with dawn phenomenon and feet on the floor. It can be tricky, but there are strategies. If you stick around, I'll make sure you get them. Okay, so how do you know if it's dawn phenomenon or feet on the floor? I'll show you a trick to telling them apart in just a minute, because the solutions overlap, but they aren't identical. So here's the formula that I now use and coach my T1D private clients on. Earlier, smarter dinner. Lighter, protein forward earlier in the evening, and watch fat content. It's not that fats are bad, it's just that you need to be aware of them and their impact. Same thing with carbs. Carbs are not bad. They are not the enemy, but you need to have a strategy. You need to know your insulin to carb ratio, your proper pre-bolus timing. You need to know your body's patterns, how you digest foods, right? Do I digest quickly, or do I have gastroparesis or gastroparalysis and I digest more slowly, right? These are all different pieces to your puzzle, to your formula. So when we're watching fat content, avoiding late, fatty, carb-heavy meals that are going to crush insulin sensitivity, it's going to help us, right? But also adding in things like moving after dinner, even 10 to 20 minutes makes a huge difference. And then exercise at some point each day. And all movement counts, by the way. It's not just that you have to do an intense workout with weight training, right? You can do whatever feels best for you or whatever you're capable of. There are some people who walking is a lot. To other people, walking is the warm-up, right? It's going to be very different for all of us, but find what works best for you. Now, next is to prioritize sleep, protect circadian rhythm, reduce cortisol, right? These are all important factors. Of course, you've got the underlying factors of checking for Simoji, consider feet on the floor, make sure it is dawn phenomenon and not rebound lows. But how do you tell if your morning spike is dawn phenomenon or feet on the floor? It comes down to timing and testing. So dawn phenomenon builds before you wake up. If you look at your CGM graph, or if you set an alarm and finger stick around 2 or 3 a.m., if you don't have a CGM, you'll see your numbers start to rise hours before your alarm clock goes off. And by the time you're awake, the spike's already there, right? It's already in motion. And for me personally, this used to hit around 5 a.m. I say used to. It still hits at 5 a.m., but because I've developed strategy around it, my blood sugar formulas, it stays stable. So now I wake up in the 90s, it stays in the 90s, and I can go and roll into breakfast in the 90s. I used to wake up in the 90s and it would skyrocket. Actually, I would be at 160 before I even got out of bed. And then I get out of bed and it would get worse, right? And so this is the challenge between the two when you experience both. Now, dawn phenomenon hits at the same time every day. Feet on the floor is different. You wake up steady if you're only experiencing feet on the floor. Don't get me wrong, you might experience both like myself, in which case it is trickier to identify. But feet on the floor, you wake up steady, flat line, no rise overnight, or this is just, it's adding fuel to the fire and getting worse, right? But then the moment you get out of bed, brush your teeth, walk to the kitchen, boom, your glucose starts climbing like it's on a mission to destroy your morning. That's the stress hormones from walking, waking, moving, and becoming alert. Really, it's not the circadian surge, right? Now, here's the tricky part. Sometimes it's both. A little dawn rise plus a bigger feet on the floor bump. And that's why people often misinterpret their mornings, right? They think their blood sugars are out to get them and that their diabetes is just more difficult and that it's impossible to control because they didn't eat anything yet. I have a really unfortunate piece of information to give you. Food isn't the only thing that causes blood sugars to rise. I wish that's what we were told on Diagnosis Day, right? But believe it or not, there are over 50 variables, 50 variables that can impact blood sugars up or down. A lot of them point blood sugars up, unfortunately. But there are multiple variables that can push blood sugars down as well. Think about it. Insulin, exercise. Exercise is a powerful one. This morning, I took half of the insulin I was supposed to take and went for a super long walk on the beach with my wife and my daughter. Amazing. Stayed in range the whole time. Now, I don't recommend cutting your dose in half. I'm just telling you what I did because I calculated it. It was very calculated. I knew how long we were going to be walking. But exercise was able to balance my blood sugars in the absence of a full dose of insulin. And had I taken the full dose of insulin, I would have gone low because exercise is that powerful at burning glucose. It's amazing. Okay. But in misinterpreting their mornings with the dawn phenomenon, feet on the floor, you have to be aware of all these different variables and that some things like your counter-regulatory hormones in your body can actually lead to spikes in blood glucose in the absence of food. It's a frustrating, what used to be a mystery. It's not a mystery anymore. We know why, but I get it. It's not fun, right? It's just another thing for you to consider. But now that you know to consider it, you have the option to control it. And that's the exciting part, is that every blood sugar exists for a reason. It's not your body just trying to punish you. It's leaving you breadcrumb trails, okay, with the blood sugars. This is your goal now, is to become the diabetes detective, to look at every blood sugar that you see as a puzzle to be solved, where you should get curious about, why did my blood sugar do that? What did I forget? What did I do that I wasn't supposed to do, right? And in this case, with dawn phenomenon and feet on the floor, I found that I experienced both when I got curious about it. Now, here's the diagnostic hack that I use with my clients, okay? Ask yourself this: does the spike in the morning follow your alarm clock if you sleep in, or does it happen at the same time every 24 hours on the dot like clockwork, even if you wake up at a different time? I want you to think about that. If you sleep in on the weekends, does that spike still happen at 7 a.m. or does it happen at 9 a.m. when you wake up? Hint: if you're seeing the spike happen when you wake up and not at the same time of day every 24 hours, it's probably feet on the floor, right? Or if you sleep in and the spike still happens while you're sleeping at the same time it usually does, it's probably dawn phenomenon, right? So identifying these things allows us to find the proper root cause and build a strategy around that. Because while, yes, I may just need more insulin to cover this initially, I also need to consider the root cause so I can fix the root cause, which may be tied to dinner the night before, or my activity level the day before, or something even deeper like quality of sleep or lifestyle habits. There's a lot to this, but I promise you that the more curious you get, the more you lean into taking responsibility for your diabetes, the simpler it gets. And that's the goal. And here's the good news. The strategies that we just covered, earlier dinners, post-dinner movement, sleep hygiene, they help both, right? But depending on how much you spike, which one you're experiencing, and more, what works for one person doesn't usually work for you, which is why this is one of the first things we tackle in private T1D coaching with my clients so that they can start the day actually feeling refreshed and with a stable starting point, right? Making the rest of the day's blood sugars easier to manage by default. I can't tell you how much more difficult blood sugars get when you start the day on a blood sugar roller coaster. You wake up at 200, have to give a big extra correction, longer pre-bolus. You're trying to time it perfectly as it's dropping. It's like trying to catch a falling knife. You know, your blood sugars are crashing, but they were at 200 to start, so I need them to crash. And you're trying to swoop in and stabilize it right at 100, but if you miss by a couple minutes, you end up low. If you jump in too soon, it just jumps right back up. This exhausting blood sugar roller coaster. Now, for me, cracking this wasn't about numbers. It was about waking up steady, clear, calm, in control. No more panic corrections, no more starting the day feeling defeated, just freedom to get out of bed, have my coffee, which can also spike blood sugars, and start with confidence. That shift emotionally was massive, and it can be for you too. So if mornings feel like a battleground, remember, it's not random, it's biochemical. And with the right blood sugar formula, you can flatten the spike. In fact, drop mornings in the comments if you're ready to reset your dawn phenomenon. And if you want me to help you build a personalized blood sugar formula, check the link in the description. It's exactly what I do with my coaching clients every day. And in my next video, I'll show you the 2 other hidden causes of morning highs that have nothing to do with dawn phenomenon and how to know which one you're really dealing with. Be part of the movement of action-oriented T1Ds and click the subscribe button now so that you don't miss out. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in the next one, and keep up the fight.